Welcome to the 23 Mile Podcast. I'm Kayode, and today I'm joined by an entrepreneur whose startup journey began remarkably early. At 15, he launched his first tech venture from his mother's basement. Since then, Dan Schiffman has been part of 3 remarkable success stories: a startup exit, a major corporate acquisition, and the scaling of an industry's trailblazer. Dan is the co-founder, former president, and CRO of TVision Insights, the MIT-born company that's redefining how the $70 billion TV advertising industry measures audience attention. Before TVision, he founded GFreely, an e-commerce subscription startup that he bootstrapped and sold within 3 years. He also played a key role at Power Advocate, an energy data company that was later acquired by Verisk for up to $280 million. In our conversation, we'll unpack how Dan's early ventures and his time in finance shaped his approach to building and scaling companies, what is learned from bootstrapping versus raising venture capital, and his perspective on endurance in the startup world. Since stepping down from the day-to-day operations at TVision, he stayed on as an advisor while investing in and consulting for high-growth companies on go-to-market strategy. Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Kayode. It's been a pleasure.
So let's start at the very beginning. You got into the tech industry very early. How did that come about?
Okay, so the way that I learn is by taking things apart. Okay, so as a kid, I would get like a remote control car and I would break it into pieces and try and build it back together. And um, I kind of did that when I got my first computer. And then I started to do that. Like I wanted to understand how is like how was this computer and this modem able to communicate with this other computer? I really needed to understand. And so it really just started out of curiosity. And then this was very early days. So I was kind of just learning how things worked and then setting things up for myself. And then realizing that, oh, I set this up for myself. And then people would ask me, hey, could you like host my website too? And then I started doing that for them and it became a little business. Yeah. And then I got into computer security for a little bit as well. So it was an interesting time. I was like a Cisco certified network professional when I was in my teens. I would read TCP IP books from cover to cover and build my own computers, play Counter-Strike, host websites, and make little web applications. It was a cool time at the infancy of the internet.
Very interesting. Just a reminder for the young ones listening today. This was when? This was late 90s, early 2000s?
Yeah, like late 1990s. Yeah.
A computer in 1999 is not, just something you go into the store and you pick up like today. It's really rare to have people who have their own personal computers, but then you were able to have yours and then take it apart. So, were your parents computer scientists as well, or how did you get to have your own computer you could take apart?
So it wasn't my own computer. Let's be clear. All right. It was the whole family's computer. If you remember, we had like the guest room was also the computer room, okay? And which is kind of a funny term, right? I don't say computer room. It's like I haven't said that in so long, but we had a computer room,
Yes.
and and um and that was everyone's computer. I happened to use it more than everyone else, okay? Um, and I think it was an IBM Aptiva, and yeah, so yes, I was blessed that we had enough money to buy a computer, but I don't think we were the first family around. And my parents were school teachers, so we didn't come from enormous wealth that we could buy the fanciest things in advance of anyone else. But we bought a good computer at a time when people needed to start buying computers. Um,
I remember this time clearly as well. But while a lot of us were fascinated by the computer and Yahoo and the chat rooms, you were actually breaking it apart and putting together. That's a remarkable thing there, right?
Yeah, this is true. This is true. Actually, it's interesting you mentioned this. So I read an article the other day that's aligned with what we're talking about, and we were using AOL, right?
Yes,
Dial-up
yes.
modem, like the beeps, and it goes to AOL. And then there were like hacking tools that came out for AOL at the time, and actually the developer of the biggest hacking tool in the late 90s, early 2000s was recently interviewed, and the discussion was actually that Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, was a big AOL hacker and was really inspired to become a developer because of that. This was my childhood, like dialing up to AOL, and then trying to hack into stuff and break things and rebuild them.
When you started doing this fix-ups for other people, did you get to set up a proper legal entity, or it was just something you ran on the side?
That's a good question, actually. This is like, I mean, don't get me in trouble here. But I was under 18. This was like a sole proprietor type thing.
So your version, basically your version of the lemonade stand, it's all allowed for teenagers, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
awesome. And how did you go from here to college? Definitely, this must have had an impact on your choice of college, your choice of undergraduate degree. Is that the case?
Yeah, it's an astute observation. It was, I mean, listen, I really loved like what I was doing in the basement, and I was hosting these different websites and gaming servers, and I was making some money, and I was Cisco certified, so I was kind of guaranteed that I could get a job of a certain level, and if I needed to kind of seek that out. And I remember this day where I was like, I think a sophomore or a junior in high school, and I'm doing okay, like B student, okay, B minus student. And my mom came up to me and she said, Daniel, I really don't know what you're doing in the basement, but you can't live here after high school. So you need to go to college and you need to figure that out like now. So I had to decrease the amount of time I was spending on, the business and tinkering and building stuff, and to spend a little bit more time on school and the SATs we have in the US, which is our standardized tests. And then I ended up choosing to go to Northeastern University. And the reason I chose that, which is a good observation by you, Coyote, and that's the reason I chose Northeastern was they had a co-op program where you ended up like a 5-year program straight through, no summers off, and you would go to school and you would work. And the school would help you get jobs, okay, that were very specifically related to your major. And as a kid who loved, getting my hands dirty and building and breaking things and learning how things worked, and that really appealed to me. And even later in life, when I went to grad school, the motto of MIT Sloan is "Mens et Manus," which is, so very similar. This is an institution that has really been built and advocates for learning by doing.
I mean, you've said a bit about NYU, and did the experience there match your expectations when you
By Northeastern. No, good question. I switched my major actually. I was doing computer engineering, and I did an internship for I worked in computer engineering. I really wanted to get a job at Cisco because I was already Cisco certified, and and they thought that I was overqualified, and they wanted someone who had less experience with Cisco to give them that. Um, 0 to 1, and they thought I was already at 1 and I wouldn't benefit from it. So that was kind of upsetting for me. And then I ended up getting an internship, a co-op they call it, at a company called Sea Change, and I was like a developer in a cube, okay, just like writing code. And I hated it so much. And I built like a tower of seltzer bottles that were drank, and I was just so bored. And I switched my major because of that. actually. Your question actually leads to something that's interesting, which is like in some cases, I'm not sure that the education and what you do with that education uh, aren't always closely tied, I guess. So you might get a degree in computer
Yeah.
science, right? But you might do something that's not directly related to computer science, okay? But you can use the skills you learn in computer science in your career. And so with that realization, I was like, I taught myself how to program, right? I taught myself how to networking and how to build and break apart and do these things. And I didn't really love the formal education around those topics either. So I kind of decided that maybe I can use the skills that I learned as a kid and will continue to learn in anything I do. And instead, let me pursue something that I wouldn't know how to pursue in another aspect of my life. So I switched to economics, and I actually really loved economics.
Very interesting. I mean, it will not surprise you to learn that I studied mechanical engineering in college and ended up in banking straight after, which brings me to the next step in your journey from computer science undergraduate, switching to economics, and then ended up in Wall Street. Were you happy with that switch, given that you had kind of turned your back, so to speak, on computer science?
Everyone was kind of going into Wall Street at that time. I mean, you probably remember that was the place to be, okay? Well, pre 2000s, I would say. So, and I had a really interesting internship at Merrill Lynch on the trading desk. I did some fascinating work. I wanted to go back and do more, and so I went right back and I did just that.
And our journeys kind of overlap because I got into banking in '07, just at the very top. So it sounded like one of the best parts of the bank. Interesting. What was the trigger for you leaving that?
Yeah. So I was like on the derivatives trading desk during the financial crisis. And the work that I had done as an intern and then some of the work that I did later on for the managing director of our division was very unique. I mean, I helped me and helped find a lot of derivatives exposure that was unaccounted for in the rest of the business before the crisis occurred. So, but I knew that I never wanted to make this a long-term career for myself. I loved what I was doing because it was exciting and it was intriguing to me, but it wasn't, I didn't see myself as a 20 years down the line being at Merrill Lynch a person. And during the crisis period, I was close with the managing director of my division, and I found out that my boss from my internship, so the guy that hired me and trained me, was gonna get laid off. And I was really upset by this. And at the time, I had some ideas to that I wanted to pursue on startup ideas, and I had a girlfriend who lived like 200 miles away, and I pulled the managing director into a room and I said, "Hey, let me go instead of Paul. Who is my boss. I'm not gonna spend the next 20 years here. This is a stepping stone for me." And so I did, and I left, and I moved to Boston, and that was it.
I mean, amazing. The great story there in terms of banking where everyone kind of looks, it's like a dog eat dog place, but then you sacrifice yourself. But this startup idea that you had in mind, was this GFreely?
I had this idea that, I mean, understand, this is like, we had Blackberries maybe at this
Yes.
time. It's just a
Yes.
different. So I had a Blackberry and I was like, man, I think there's going to be a world where we can use our Blackberries and our phones to find out like where there's happy hours and deals for things. And so this is before Groupon and Living Social and stuff like that were around. So I pursued that for about like 6 months or so after, and I built a BlackBerry application, okay?
It's nice.
And actually, I thought the business model for all of the daily deals, I mean, for the business I built, okay, was flawed because I couldn't figure out a way where in the long run, the cost of acquiring new promotions from businesses was going to like be low enough to compensate for the margin I could make on the purchases. Wanted to learn from another entrepreneur who had started something and succeeded before I started my next business. I was like, you know what? I'm not sure that this has a legs for the long term. So I found a company called Power Advocate in the Boston area, and I joined them, which was a more established business to help build out a software division for a services company.
What you described as, joining as a staff or as not as a founder, but I dare say it's almost as hard as starting a business from scratch. Was that the experience for you?
Well, they had the probably like the beta version or version 1.0 of the product, and they were looking to build it out and expand it and turn it into a machine.
And how did it go? Were you on the software side? Were you or on the sales or go-to-market? What was your role here?
I mean, it's a very small group. So it was, I guess my time was split. Our product was using uh day basically forecasting the cost of power plant construction and maintenance, the overnight cost to construct a nuclear power plant, and then what that would be over time. And so I was personally responsible for our nuclear power plant model, okay, that predicted the cost of nuclear power plants. And then I was also responsible for publishing our data and our models that were used by customers. And then eventually I helped them build a new product for contract management and forecasting instead of just the cost. And then I brought on some new customers, specifically on the West Coast, that used our product extensively.
This ended up being acquired for hundreds of millions of dollars, right?
Yes, yeah. Power Advocate was acquired by Verisk. I mean, primarily for the software business. So I would say that the CEO of Power Advocate's name is Dan Sullivan, and I think Daniel Sullivan was successful in. There wasn't just one software product. We ended up building out multiple. Right? I mentioned we had this cost product, we had a contract product. Eventually, there was a spend product, and the services business was helping to put boots on the ground and bring in revenue, and then those boots on the ground could help promote the software, right, and help kind of sell it almost passively, right, into organizations. So yeah, I think it was a very successful exit for Power Advocate.
Amazing. And you got into Power Advocate for the desire to learn. How did this impact your next step, which is the e-commerce startup?
Yeah, so this is a very easy one. So Power Advocate in the energy industry, what I learned was that one, the sales cycle was very long.
Okay.
Like 18 months it would take to sell software in the energy industry. And further, the energy industry in the United States is cost reimbursable. Even if I can sell you a product that's going to help you save so much money, but they don't want to save money, right? Because all they have to do is go and there's things called rate cases and convince the courts that they need to increase prices to compensate for the increased costs. So saving costs doesn't help them, right? Because what are they gonna? They can't go back and say it doesn't work. They need justification for increasing costs. So this became a bit of a challenge, and I wanted to move to a consumer industry that was a bit more fast moving and wasn't subject to this sales cycle. And at the time, I was trying this new diet recommended by my doctor, and I was having all these benefits from it, and it was a gluten-free diet. And I was like, man, this diet is so hard, and I like don't know what products to buy, I don't know where to shop, and I wish there was something that could help me discover new products. to figure out what to buy. And then I did some more research and I found out that actually there was this thing called celiac disease, which I didn't know about before. And about like 1%, I think it was about 1 to 2% of the population genetically has celiac disease. But in the United States, only like 0.2% are diagnosed with celiac disease. So it seemed like, oh, there's probably this population that really needs these products and might not know yet. Okay. And I feel like there was a good, like, it was a good market to test a subscription model in because there would be a strong need. So I built all of these presentations and tried to raise money and do all this stuff, and I was just taking time. I had no customers yet. And
Okay.
finally, I one weekend I was just like, you know what? This is enough already. I'm just gonna build it. I don't know why I've been doing all this research. So I just kind of locked myself in a room for the weekend. I put up a website, I set up a PayPal account, I incorporated a business, I used LegalZoom to do some stuff to get the entity set up, and used a WordPress template to set up the site, and put $1,000 in my AdWords account, and got some customers. And then I was like, well, crap, I got to actually send them something. And then I figured out how to do that, and I built an operation. And what started as a business, packing boxes in my apartment, about a year later, we had a, third party logistics warehouse that was pick, packing, and shipping, and that was directly connected to my Shopify store. And we had thousands of these boxes going out every month, and it turned into a real business.
Did you bring on a co-founder or was it just you?
It was just me. It was just me.
And then, you scale this to over $1 million in revenue in just a very short period.
That's right.
This is remarkable achievement for something you just started on a whim. What helped you? How did you then go from these early successes to getting the exit in such a
Yeah.
short while?
So there's a bigger lesson here, right?
Okay.
And that is that, like, I was able to exit this business. And the reason I was able to exit this business was that there was a lot of competition in this sector, not on just gluten-free, but e-commerce and e-commerce for food and snacks. Okay. There was a lot of competition. There were many players, and it was unclear. The differentiation was like brand, okay, brand messaging and stuff. And, so as a result, like all of the kind of key competitors in the space, we all talked. And we either talked because we were friends or we talked because we were frenemies. Uh, and so when I wanted to go to business school, and I got into business school, and I hired a banker, an individual, kind of actually like an ex, Morgan Stanley guy, okay, to help me sell it. And we got a great deal from a business that actually wasn't one of those frenemies. It was a business that had a business that wanted to expand e-commerce. And it was great. It was going to close right before I started classes, and it was perfect. And that deal fell through. And then, which was a disaster for me because I was at school full time. I wanted to spend my time at MIT Sloan, and now I'm like running a business full time and going to class. It was a lot. And yeah, so I scrambled, and I was able to get another deal on the table, and I was able to execute that deal the end of the first semester at Sloan and get it done, and sell the business. And that money helped pay, I think, yeah, helped pay for business school and put me in a solid spot.
Amazing. Really glad that you were able to get that second deal through. I tell a lot of founders, if you have just one term sheet, it's very risky. Things could happen. Glad it all ended up well. The MBA, for me, I look at it like you had a business that was working. It should have been like, ideally, you would be like, I will scale this. This could turn to something. But seems you were right in going to pursue the MBA because it kind of opened a bigger door to what became TVision. Can you run us through how this happened with this class assignment that turned into the startup?
Yeah, yeah. So the origin of TVision story.
Yes.
Yeah. So, well, I guess when I wrote my essay for business school, I wrote that I wanted to meet my co-founder to start my next business with.
And did you have
And
an
that's exactly
idea?
what I did.
Did you have an idea what the business was going to be at that point? No.
No. I knew that I wanted to get back into enterprise because I was tired of selling 20 to $50 things on the internet to people, right? I wanted to sell 20,000 to $100,000 enterprise solutions. And so I knew that I wanted to do that. And then I was approached by a classmate who had this idea, and he explained it to me, and he was like, Dan, I want to build this business where we put cameras in people's living rooms and watch them watch TV and then sell the data to media companies and brands. And I was like, man, this sounds like the creepiest thing I've ever heard. I want nothing to do with this business. Like absolutely nothing. And then a bunch of guys in my class pinged me and they were like, Dan, uh I think he's got something here. I think you should give him some more time. Like there might be something there. So I met with him once a week or twice a week for about a month or two. And we discussed the business and the strategy and we kind of riffed on it. And I realized that there was a play here. And I said to him, I was like, you know what? If you can get these cameras in living rooms, I can build a business out of the data. And then we did it. And we built a business out of it. And we didn't necessarily describe it the way I'm describing it, right? I'm kind of telling you the kind of half joking as I describe that. But we did use computer vision technology. Now people would facial recognition, but now people probably call AI, and to passively measure precisely who was in the room and when, and if and when they were actually paying attention to the screen, second by second, to all content, including television and streaming content that comes through the television or the screen. And we don't know that computer vision technology, the way it worked was that we wouldn't know if you're fully clothed or fully naked. Okay. We just know person 124 and household 6 is paying attention this second, not paying attention to the next. And it's, 6 seconds into a Ford ad and Modern Family type of thing. And, then we could aggregate that second by second data and draw really rich insights on when and where people were actually paying attention to advertising on television and streaming, and then we were able to license that data and insights to the media companies, and the media companies use it for a number of purposes, and we license it to the brands and agencies to help them make better advertising decisions.
How easy or difficult was it getting your first customers in the early days?
We were doing something that was so unique, and we were able to raise enough small amount of money to get technology, and to get that technology in a couple like test households. And because of that, we were started to collect just a little bit of data that we could prove we had something here. And that was enough to give me some confidence and to give some investors interest, right? That there might be something here. And the advantage of pitching investors, okay, is that oftentimes those investors want a second opinion. And that second opinion can many times become your customer. Okay. And I would say a few of our initial customers were actually the second opinion people for the seed investors. So in this case, I think Disney ABC Television Group, or so Disney, was one of our first customers, and they were introduced by our seed investor as part of a vetting process.
So you basically had this loop or fundraising and then customers closing one helped close the other. What about the fundraising itself? It's one of the toughest tasks most entrepreneurs face. How did you guys nail this process over time?
Well, yeah. How did we nail this process? I don't know if we nailed it. Okay, like we it's sales, okay? It's the same thing. So you build a sheet of a list of investors you want to go after, you build a pitch of what you're going to pitch those investors, and then you just start knocking on doors. You're going to get a lot of no's, okay? And you'll get some maybes, and you'll get some people that, hey, talk to this person and pitch them. So yeah, we did that, and it's a grind every time, but we made it happen.
The company has raised about $70 million till date. So it looks like it's 10 years of getting it right. But I mean, but after 5 years of building, you left the full-time run at TVision. How did this come about? Were you tired? What happened?
Yeah, so I was fully vested, and I had some other opportunities at the time. So yeah, we kind of parted ways with the business on a full-time basis and was able to stay an advisor and do other stuff. I thought it was unclear at the time whether TVision was going to become a $300 million company. I thought TVision might become a $50 million business, maybe. And I really wanted experience scaling a business to like 300 plus million dollars. And I had two opportunities to do that kind of on the back burner, and I decided to pursue that. And one of them kind of failed very fast in a spectacular fashion with a bribery and corruption scandal. And I was like, all right, I want nothing to do with this. And then the other opportunity worked, and that was exactly what I did. And I was able to scale a business from 50 million when I joined to 250 million when I left in like 18 months. And it
Amazing.
was a super cool experience.
What were some of the main differences between taking a business from zero to maybe 10, 20, whatever TVision's revenue was then, to this scaling journey that you ended up pursuing?
Yeah, so totally different. When you're starting something, a lot of what you're doing is it's just grit. You gotta just move and work hard and get shit done. But when it comes to scaling a business, it's a bit more thoughtful. What data can you use to do this smarter than your competitors? How can you find a way to outcompete everyone who's trying to fight for the same business? And I don't know, both are fun. Both are fun. But I wanted a swing at the ladder, and I got it, and it was great.
What would you say is more important at that stage, between the product, the customers, and the team? How do you square all these different dynamics to scale a company successfully?
Like, how do you align each of those?
Yes, how do you allocate resources? How do you allocate time, funding between nailing? If you had to choose one to get right in order to scale, which will you focus on? Is it improving the product, hiring more people? How does it work at that stage of scaling revenue?
You have to have a product that fits into a buying model in order to scale. There has to be an existing purchasing pattern that companies buy cybersecurity software and they buy it like this. Okay. So if you don't have a product that fits that box, it's very hard to scale that business. Very hard. So you need to get to a point where your product can fit into that box. We have a product that does this in cybersecurity, and there's other products that do that same thing, and customers are used to buying cybersecurity products that do that, and there's a buying process. So that is critical. That's critical.
And with this, you were on, if I can use the word, a rocket ship. At what point did you decide that you were done with that and you wanted something else? Which seems to be like the theme. You have your high set on the goal, you achieve it, and then you move on to something else. What was the
That's right.
point here where you thought, I'm done?
I came in to be a transformation person, right? So,
Okay.
hey, help transform this thing to IPO. And we got it there. And I felt one, I had some personal reasons that I had family stuff to take care of. But I wouldn't have just left if it was just that. In addition, I felt as though we had hired so many people in all of these very functional roles. And I was in a cross-functional role across all of these functions, kind of like I was really spread across the organization. And I built a lot of processes and systems and lots of new materials and like, but it was running. This business was cranking. And people were still coming to me for stuff. And I felt as though I was getting in the way versus helping accelerate at that point. And so I felt as though, like, hey, I have these personal things to take care of. And I feel like my existence at this business is enabling people to come to me for things that they shouldn't be coming to me for. They should be like, they need to be the expert. So I felt like it was a good time to kind of graduate on to the next thing.
What have you spent time on then? I know you're advising companies on go-to-market. You're an expert in the whole advertising media space. You're an investor. Can you tell us some of those things that you've focused on since living this transformation role?
Yeah. So I've been helping companies grow and build out go to market, and I've done it for a variety of different businesses. And actually, it's been a really interesting period of my career. I've been able to work with big media companies all over the world and help them IPO or build out a long-term strategy or an M&A strategy. And I've helped startups figure out how to package their product in a way that they can commercialize it and sell it to customers and then build a rinse repeat go to market process to grow their business. And it's given me a lot of diversity of professional, exposure that I like.
If I were going to define it as either exiting or IPO, what are the main tips you've learned over the years that founders and executives need to focus on from a go-to-market perspective to set themselves up for success?
Okay, top 3 things that teams need to focus on to get to IPO. One is choose a market that is highly competitive.
Hmm.
Okay, uh, that's one thing. 2 is to uh, focus on building a rinse repeat machine to scale up the sales of this product. Because if you're not getting a lot of sales, no one's going to buy your business. You can't. And I would say the third thing is make sure that your product fits into the buying pattern of the customer.
If I can pick you up on that first one, that is quite, it's counterintuitive to the way founders think. Choosing a market that is competitive. Why is that so? Why is that really important?
Because you know that there are buyers.
Okay.
That's why I think if you would choose a market that is not very competitive, there aren't many players there, there's a substantial risk that nobody's going to want to buy your business.
That is a great point. I like that. Okay, you're still young. You have all this experience behind you across every part of the business. What's next for you?
Yeah, I mean, I have some interesting clients right now. I'm trying to help them scale up, and it's taken up about 60% of my time. So I have about 40% left. So also kind of spending that 40% looking for the next big thing. So if you have a startup you want to start, Coyote, you gotta give me a call, man. Let's chat.
I will jump on it. I dare need to ask. I bet you know exactly what you're looking for. Can you tell me what does it look like? What will the next thing you will jump on be?
I don't know, actually. I'm not sure right now. The world is a crazy place right now with the emergence of AI and a lot of the technology we have. I think there's a lot of opportunity, but there's also a lot of noise.
Yes.
and it's difficult to find the signal from the noise.
Great point. Okay, so if you had one choice between starting something new now, if it could be bootstrap versus raising VC, which would you choose and why?
If you can bootstrap a business in a competitive space, like to do everything I said before, competitive sector, rinse, repeat, right? In a product buying cycle, and you could bootstrap it, do that. Do that. You will be so much happier. You won't have people that may not have the same incentives as you on your board telling you what to do. Okay. And those people might have a different timeline than you because they have a fund and they have to exit that fund in a certain timeline to give money back to their investors. Your business might have a different one. Yeah.
One other conundrum, you tried enterprise, you tried consumer, you went back to enterprise. So if you could pick one today, which will it be?
Oh, enterprise all day. Enterprise all day. All day. I like value-based selling, and I love everything about the enterprise. No, I don't want to sell widgets on the internet anymore.
You've seen both sides, tech versus consulting.
Tech versus consulting. No, I don't agree with the split. I say the best tech businesses have product and services.
I love that. That is also very different, though I must admit I've seen some VCs, a lot of people in tech space realizing that consulting, which a lot of people shit on, is unnecessary. It is actually a great business model. Awesome. Okay. Last question before we go. If you could summarize the entrepreneurship in one word, what would it be?
Hustle. That
How would you describe hustle to someone just wanting to go into startups? What does hustle really mean?
I'll give you a great story. A friend of mine wanted to start a business that was helping people, restaurants that had leftover food, to be able to bring that food to like a shelter or somewhere else where they could use that food, right? And he was asking me about, he was like, oh, like what should we do? And he was telling me he wants to build his marketplace and this website. And I just look at him, I say, listen, stop. And you need to go and rent a car, okay? Rent a white van and drive to this place that has food and pick it up, and then go to someone that needs it and deliver it and take notes on everything that happened, right? And document it. That is day one of your business. And that's what I love about entrepreneurship. It's just this get shit done, hustle and make things work, and use your raw intelligence to innovate.
Thank you very much. We could go on all day. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope my audience does. Thank you very much, Daniel, and all the best in the next thing.
Absolute pleasure, Coyote. You are a gem. This podcast is great, and it's been an honor to be here with you. So thank you.